Following the Great Fire of 1871, the city of Chicago underwent a great rebuilding. Located on the south side of the city was the Union Stockyard, hub of the city's rail yards. As refrigerated boxcars were perfected in the late 1870s, the area became the center of the country's meatpacking industry. Following the Great Fire, skilled Irish and German butchers would migrate south to this area, known officially as Lake, but locally as Packington. It was in this area just south of the stockyards, at 51st and Laflin Street, that German immigrants in 1879 would erect a Catholic church named in honor of St. Augustine. By the turn of the 20th century, Slavic immigrants, including Poles, Lithuanians, Slovaks, and Czechs, would settle in Packington, each establishing their own community, organized around an ethnic parish serving as a social, cultural, and spiritual focus for residents. Often these parishes were just blocks apart. Known early on for rough working-class living conditions, immortalized in Uppington St. Clair's 1906 The Jungle, Packington, or Back of the Yards as it would eventually be called, was characterized by its vibrant and cohesive communities. In 1858, exiled friars from Germany arrived in Teutopolis, Illinois, establishing the Sacred Heart Province. The Franciscan friars in charge of St. Augustine Parish beginning in 1886 belonged to this same province. It would be a Franciscan who arrived in Teutopolis in 1862 that as an architect would go on to design more than 100 churches and other related structures, including overseeing the design and construction of the new St. Augustine's Church, in addition to the sanctuary that included the high altars completed in 1904. St. Augustine was a thriving parish with a grade school, high school, social hall, auditorium, convent, Franciscan monastery, and press office, which published the Franciscan Herald, originally published in Teutopolis. With the stockyards closing operations in 1971, the demographics of the community shifted, with many of the original European immigrants moving to the suburbs. In 1990, due to the large number of local parishes, the decline in attendance, and in an effort to dramatically cut costs, the Archdiocese of Chicago announced the closure of 31 parishes, in addition to several schools and missions. After 113 years of spiritual service to the community, St. Augustine was among the parishes closed on June 30th, 1990. As St. Paul writes in his letter to the Romans, knowing that to them that love God, all things work together unto good, this closure would intertwine the fate of St. Augustine's Church in Chicago and the Holy Cross Parish in Wendelin, 210 miles away. The 1989 repairs started under Father Gibson were seen to fruition by Reverend David L. Braun, who was appointed pastor of Holy Cross in July of 1989. From Father Braun's journal, October 8, 1989, "Isn't the work on the church looking good? The older man in charge of the crew came to me the other morning and said, 'In my 44 years I've been working on buildings, I don't believe I've ever helped one as much as I have this one.' He said the brick on the east transept wall could just be lifted out by hand. On both walls, when they neared the roof level and would crack a brick, water would come pouring out. It certainly is a time to fix those walls." Following the completion of exterior repairs, the focus of the parish council turned to interior repairs and the possibility of a major renovation to the interior of the church. On October 8, 1991, the Holy Cross Pastoral Council reviewed 3 sketches for proposed interior renovations of the church. 2 of the companies stated they would do anything the council wanted. The council was looking for some advice from a professional in the field, and the liturgical consultant with the 3rd company, Studies of Potente, located in Kenosha, Wisconsin, had plenty of insight to offer. He felt the air inside the church was fetid, the ceiling vents had been wrongly sealed, the side aisles were too shadowy, and the lighting insufficient, commenting, "What good is beauty if you cannot see it?" Mr. Herbert James Daniel, or Jim as the council would come to know him over the next year and a half, was a colorful personality. Mr. Daniel said the walls could not be painted any color because of so much blue stained glass. The walls would need to be beige to tone down and neutralize the stained glass. The sanctuary posed a larger problem. As Mr. Daniel described, "It's like a vault. Too wide, too high, too empty." One parishioner remarked, "I wonder how many bales of hay we could stack up there." The ceiling presented a problem as well, because there was no division separating the ceiling and the walls. The Gothic vaulting of the ceiling couldn't be seen because it was all painted the same color as the walls. A contract was signed with the Studies of Potente, and Mr. Daniel went to work. As renovations were undertaken, Mass was held in the upstairs of the parish hall. To accommodate the parish, 3 weekend Masses were held. As plans for the interior renovations moved forward, the problem facing the team remained the sizable sanctuary with no focal point. Mr. Daniel commented during one of the meetings, "Too bad you don't have an old high altar so we would have some wood to work with." Father Braun took that comment as a challenge and worked to find an old high altar. In February of 1992, he placed an initial call to the Archdiocese of St. Louis, who informed him that they did not have any available. He next called the Archdiocese of Chicago. After some suspenseful waiting, he was informed that a recently closed parish on the south side of Chicago had 3 Gothic high altars that would be available to Holy Cross, with the assurance they'd be removed as soon as possible. The church was St. Augustine. A few days after the phone call, Father Braun, Kelly Geyer, Don Volk, and Dean Klingler were off to Chicago to pursue the altars. The trip was an adventure. The area surrounding the Church of St. Augustine was like a bombed-out war zone. On the steps of the church laid fire shell casings. There were bullet holes in the thick glass doors of the church. Peering through the glass doors, the men could see the high altars rising 47 feet. The church edifice was truly that of a cathedral. The archdiocesan custodian arrived and let them in. There was no electricity in the church. The stained glass windows had already been removed. The storm windows let in the only light, that of a cold, overcast February sky. The bottom 1/3 of the altar had been stripped, all the statues had been removed, but the upper 2/3 of the altar was beautifully carved wood. A week later, 3 pickup trucks and 9 men from Wendelin left for Chicago to procure the altars. When they arrived, they found an organ firm working to remove the large pipe organs of St. Augustine's. The firm promptly told Wendelin that it would take a week to dismantle the high altar. However, the men from Wendelin had it down by 3:30 that same day. Chris Rudolphi and Melvin Coker would climb around the top of the altar knowing no fear. Don Volk's sister, Sister Antoinette, a native of Wendelin who was stationed in Chicago at the time, arrived to St. Augustine's church that morning, sat in the front pew, and prayed the men through their task. The men had brought a generator with them so they could work late. The organ workers informed them that if they did not leave by 3 p.m., the Chicago police would escort them out. It was too dangerous a neighborhood to remain after dark. Dean Geyer from Beacon's Moving Company of Effingham arrived with a semi-truck. The 3 dismantled altars were loaded, and everyone returned to Wendelin, tired, pleased, and dirty. Mr. Daniel was very surprised that Wendelin had obtained 3 wooden high altars. He asked, "How can you put in what others are throwing out?" The council assured him they weren't especially interested in having a high altar, but wanted some kind of wooden artwork to take away the void in the sanctuary. The wood was used to build a large freestanding reredos, serving as an archway into the Blessed Sacrament Chapel, where a tabernacle tower was constructed from the same wood. Father Braun wrote in his journal, "The next time you see a high altar against a back wall, notice how much more expression our reredos cause by being freestanding and open. I love the powerful effect of the large solemn archway leading to the tabernacle tower. Some feel it needs statues. True enough, the reredos is composed of statue niches, but how heavy it would cause it to look if it was filled with statues. When a high altar is against a wall, the heaviness of it appears okay, but freestanding and with a huge open arch, I think it would be too much. Then too, I'm not sure the top of the arch could support the weight of statues. When cleaning it, it was shaky. And of course, the church wants the focal point to be on the altar of sacrifice. These are some of the thoughts of the consultant, Mr. Daniel, involved in our renovation. I think that in time, our mind's eye will see a reredos consisting simply of wood columns, arches, spires, and canopies. We won't be looking for statues. Just the look of warm, beautifully carved wood will suffice." Mr. Eugene Potente, president of the company, wrote to the parish regarding the wood obtained from St. Augustine's. "It was difficult renovating the reredos, completely remaking it out of existing parts, plus adding new parts as necessary to make the entire unit open and freestanding. We also tried to prepare some reasonable finish on all the various scattered parts. I realize you would have preferred the reredos to be lighter in tonal value, but in order to match all the pieces and cover the scarred old finish, the stain color we achieved was the best we could do. The only other solution would have been to strip the old finish off the bare wood, then bleach and restain and lacquer the pieces. This would have added $20,000 to the cost of the work." With the reredos serving as an archway, The focal points of the renovated church quickly became the two beautiful old tabernacle doors with the angels painted on them. They came from the original old high altar at Holy Cross. These doors permit the parish to have an old part of Wendelin among all the new. The parish is grateful to Ivan and Marie Weber and Ralph and Georgiana Weber for having rescued and saved these old doors when the original high altar was dismantled in 1966. Had it not been for their foresight in saving these treasured pieces of our parish past, these doors may have been lost. Mr. Daniel wanted to move the altar forward where it would rest directly below the juncture of the church's cruciform shape. The idea caused some unrest among parishioners who were concerned about losing seating. The council became split on the issue. Councilwoman Kathy Kinsler saved the day by proposing a compromise. She suggested bringing the altar forward half the distance proposed and cut the pews back on either side to frame the altar. That way, only 2 full rows of pews would be removed. 2 side altars from St. Augustine's were used to fashion the altar. Father William Volk and Sister Kate Kinsler helped decipher the Latin inscribed on the altar table. The front of the altar has the Latin words meaning, Heart of Jesus, Victim of Love. The back panel of the altar contains the words meaning, Holy Mary, pray for us. In the Roman catacombs, early Christians celebrated Mass over the tombs of martyrs. This practice continued as churches were erected. The remains of saints were either interned in or altars built over them. Today, Catholic altars contain an altar stone with the remains or relics of usually at least 2 saints, one of whom is usually a martyr. This is not to take away any of our focus from Jesus and his sacrifice, but to remind us of how we are to imitate his example. The entombing of martyrs in our altar designates their closeness to us. It is the Lamb of God upon the altar who is sacrificed for us all. Beneath the altar are those who by his suffering were redeemed. The altar stone in our altar is the oldest of several stones Holy Cross has on property, and probably comes from the original St. John's altar in the First Catholic Church here in the area. The other 2 altar stones are smaller and probably come from the old side altars that were once in Holy Cross. Our stone contains the remains or relics of St. Fulgentus and St. Probus, who were early Christian martyrs. When the priest kisses the altar, it is this place that he kisses, venerating not only the altar itself, which is a representation of both Christ and the cross, but also the saints whose relics are present. Other pieces from St. Augustine's old high altar were used to make niches for 2 statues, an ambo, and a pastoral candle holder. When Sister Barb Kober, who was visiting a Stringtown friend, saw the work, tears came to her eyes. A native of St. Augustine's, she was glad to see the old German altar, which once rose 47 feet in the Chicago church, receive new life. The baptismal font is the old Wendelin font, but renovated. The dome lid was removed, it was no longer practical, and was broken, only opening halfway. Dave Kistner sold out a small interior bowl, and the Potente company installed a large pottery bowl in the font. To increase the height of the font, they added a base. None of this was too easy because the font was made from cast iron. The entire font was painted antique gold to harmonize with the reredos. This baptismal font has seen the baptism of new parishioners for most of Holy Cross's history. The council kept its focus on 4 areas: plaster and painting, lighting, flooring, and the reredos. They felt the only extra expenditure was the reredos. Lighting, flooring, plastering, and painting were all essential. The ceiling was separated from the wall with a wide molding made of wood. All of the arches are highlighted with a broad gray-style line, which is set off by a red pinstripe. The stencil motifs were painted in a dark reddish-brown and highlighted with gold leaf. These scrolled patterns are found between every arch of the ceiling. It was the ladies on the council who wanted the sanctuary floor to be quarry tile. The deep brown wood of the reredos resting on the stone floor truly gives Holy Cross an old-world ambience. The church, harmonious throughout beige-colored walls, a high white vaulted ceiling, predominantly blue stained glass windows, the altar brought forward 10 feet, the lighting more than tripled, and all of this crowned by a large carved wooden archway in the sanctuary. This renovation could not have been a success without the efforts of the entire parish, our pastor, Father David Braun, and the strengths of the council members and trustees serving at the time. Parish council members involved in this renovation were Wayne Weber, Bill Weber, Fred Kessler, Martha Daimel, Kathy Kinsler, and Mary Beth Cohen. The trustees were Dean Klingler and Fred Eubinger. Since being installed in 1993, the magnificent craftsmanship from the 1904 high altar at St. Augustine's has come to define the beauty of Holy Cross. That beauty that once adored St. Augustine's is now part of us. It lives on, and their history becomes part of our history. And we, the parishioners of Holy Cross, are stewards of those parishioners of St. Augustine and Holy Cross that came before us, united in a shared history and a shared faith in God.